Hello, everyone. I'm doing my discussion tonight on the militia and Francis Marion during the war. The militia actually played a vital part of the war effort. They were actually the primary source of defense prior to the war during the colonial times, and there was typically no standing army in British North America unless they were actually fighting with the French. And even then, it was a lot of times the militia involved in that. I'm actually just there. Tons of each state had their own militia that was involved and played a vital role. I'm just discussing here Francis Marion and the South Carolina militia primarily. Um, you may think, what does Mel Gibson and the 75th Ranger Regiment have to do with Marion? He actually is a Mel Gibson's character in the movie The Patriot. If you've seen that, is actually based off of Francis Marion. It is a loose rendition of Marion, but that's where they get his character from. And there is a few truths to it, but it is mostly fictionary. Marion was a French and War. Oh, I'm sorry, a French and Indian War veteran. He volunteered with the South Carolina militia to fight with the British against Cherokee Indian in South Carolina during the war. And he actually learned his guerrilla tactics that he eventually used against the British. He learned these during the French and Indian War as he fought against the Cherokee. During the war, he was nicknamed the Swamp Fox. This is a quote from a Colonel Tarleton. During the war, he was actually dispatched to hunt down Marion and kill or capture him, but he was simply unable to do it after weeks of chasing Marion through the backwoods and the swamps of the state. He eventually gave up, and you see the quote here. He used I'm sorry, he ended up being nicknamed the Swamp Fox. One, because of this comment, he's called a fox, and two, because he used the swamps as his home bases and to hide from the British. The Gamecock, in the comment, says, "We will find the Gamecock." That is actually another South Carolina militia general, Thomas Sumter, who fought also in the war. You can't see it because of my screen here, but the last comment says, "Father of the modern day Army Rangers." A lot of the guerrilla tactics that Marion learned from the Cherokee Indian and then eventually turned on the British and fought were so valuable that even today, a lot of these tactics are taught during Ranger School, and they're taught to the soldiers that end up earning the Army Ranger tab. The picture here is just the battles and skirmishes of Marion's brigade. These are 53 documented battles and skirmishes. And I do note that this is Marion's brigade. He was not involved, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, he was not involved in a lot of these, but it was simply his brigade. And again, my screen's blocking where it says over 200 skirmishes and battles in the state. South Carolina actually had more battles and skirmishes than any other colony during the war. And this counts loyalists and patriots fighting each other, patriots and the British Army, the Continentals and the British Army, and the Continentals and patriots against the British Army. So it does involve all three of those. This right here is just showing the southern strategy of the British. Essentially, their goal was move south, take over the two major ports in the south, which are Charleston and Savannah at that time, and then move north, collecting loyalists, collecting equipment, weapons, ammo, everything they needed. And their goal was to move north and surround Washington as he fought against the Northern Army. Marion and the militia played a vital role because to combat the British, Washington sent Horatio Gates and the Continentals into the South, the Southern Army, but the British were simply too much for them to handle. The Continental Army in the South only won one major battle, and that was the Battle of Cowpens. Other than that, the skirmishes and the head-to-head battles, they actually either lost or they fought to neutrality. So where Marion would play his role is his troops would use their guerrilla tactics to ambush the British, and essentially they would harass them, kill as many as they could, loot, take their equipment, take their horses, take what they could, and flee. And they would not fight long. They would simply attack as quickly as they could, and then they'd run. And they knew that they just didn't have the manpower or the equipment to fight the British head to head. But this tactic actually worked, because Cornwallis was actually forced to flee back into Charleston from the backwoods, and he eventually fled the South, moved up to Yorktown, where he later would surrender to end the war. But this is just a lot of good information about the militia and Marion, and I hope you guys got a little something out of it, and I appreciate your time.